Okay, this is 5.7, day 2, complex zeros and forming polynomial functions for advanced algebra trig. There was a warm-up problem. The warm-up problem I asked everybody to do was to sketch the function f of x equals x squared minus 2x plus 1. So I factored this quadratic to x minus 1 times x minus 1, which gives me x minus 1 all squared. And then I asked everybody to graph it. So the thing that I wanted to point out was the fact that we have a squared function, but we only had one spot on the graph where the x-axis was intercepted there. And yesterday's homework, we figured out that the degree matched the number of zeros. So what we have going on here is something called a double root. Okay? When you have only one solution that hits the graph, it comes down, hits the graph, and then goes back around again. That's called a double root or a root of multiplicity 2. So that's what happens when you have this type of picture going on. And that's going to come into play right here when we do this first problem. So our goal for today was to form a polynomial function f of x with real coefficients, having the given degrees and the zeros. Okay. So right now you know that this particular polynomial has a degree of 4. And we're given 2 of the zeros here. We're given that 3 plus 2i is a 0. That's a complex 0. Complex 0 there. And then we know that 4 is a 0 with a multiplicity of 2. So the first thing we want to do is we want to get the other zeros. Well, since 3 plus 2i is a 0, I know by the complex conjugate theorem that 3 minus 2i is the other 0. And since 4 has a multiplicity of 2, then I know that 4 is another 0. Because it has to happen twice, has a multiplicity of 2, just like this one over here has a double root, this x minus 1 thing. All right, so now that I have picked out my zeros, what I need to do is I need to obtain my factors. Now you may recall that if 1 is a 0, then x minus 1 is a factor. So here's what we're going to do. So since I know 4 is a 0, I know that x minus 4 is a factor. But since 4 happens twice, I know that this is just x minus 4 squared. Then I have my complex zeros. Since 3 plus 2i is a 0, then I know that x minus the quantity 3 plus 2i is a factor. And likewise, x minus the quantity 3 minus 2i is another factor. So I'm going to go ahead and focus on this piece for right now. That's pretty easy. That's going to be x squared minus 8x plus 16. So I'm going to put that off to the side. So all this stuff in yellow, when you square that out, becomes this stuff. Okay, then I need to focus on these parts right here, these two blue things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite those in a little bit easier form here. So that's going to be x minus 3 minus 2i. I'm going to distribute that minus sign. And then x minus 3 plus 2i. Again, I'm going to distribute that minus sign. So what I need to do is I need to multiply that thing together. And the way I'm going to choose to do that is by using a box. So I'm going to have x minus 3 plus 2i on the top. And then I'm going to have x minus 3 minus 2i on the left. Now you don't have to use the box. You could also use the distributive property 9 times, but I find the box is a lot more user-friendly for me. So here we go. X times x is x squared. This is going to be negative 3x, and this is going to be 2xi. I'm just multiplying each one of these together. So negative 3 times x, that's a negative 3x. Negative 3 times a negative 3 is a positive 9. And then a negative 6i. And then this is going to be negative 2xi, positive 6i, and then finally negative 4i squared. And all this stuff can be simplified. So let's talk about this thing. The x squared, I can't do anything with that, so I'll leave that as x squared. Okay, I have a negative 3x and a negative 3x. That's a negative 6x, so minus 6x. All right, then I have a 2xi and a negative 2xi, so that goes away. And so does this. And the negative 6i and the positive 6i, that also goes away. So that leaves me with 9 and a negative 4i squared. Now, I squared is negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 4 is a positive 4, so 9 and 4 together make 13, so this becomes a 13. So now I know that all this stuff here in blue, okay, boils down to this stuff right here in blue. And I found that by using the box method. So the only other thing to do is to multiply my yellow and my blue together, and I'll get my polynomial function. And I'm going to do another box for that one. So here we go. X squared minus 6x plus 13, and then x squared minus 8x plus 16. X squared minus 8x plus 16. Is that right? Yep, there it is. Okay, here we go. And so far, I mean, when I'm done with this thing, I should have a polynomial function with a degree of 4. So hopefully that'll start to make itself apparent here. Okay, so x squared times x squared. Hey, there it is, x to the 4th. Awesome. This is going to be negative 6x to the 3rd. This is going to be 13x squared. This is negative 8x to the 3rd. Positive 48x. 8 times 13 is 94. Negative 94x. Let's see here. So this is 16x squared. This is going to be 60 and 36, 96. So negative 96x. And then, let's see here. 16 times 13, is that 208? This is not 94. This is 104. Negative 104. Hello. Negative 104. There we go. Yeah, because 80 and then 24. Yeah, negative 104. Sorry about that. All right, so let's clean this whole thing up now. All right, so there's an x to the 4th. So my function, right, f of x is going to be, there is my 4th degree polynomial. Okay, let's check this out. Negative 6x to the 3rd and a negative 8x to the 3rd is a negative 14x to the 3rd. So minus 14x to the 3rd. Okay, now I've got in green here negative or 13x squared, and 16x squared is what, 29x squared? So positive 29x squared. Positive 29x squared. Did I do that right? Yeah. And then here's what else I got. I've got how about in this one now? Negative 104. This should be 104x, by the way. Negative 104 and negative 96 is negative 200x. So negative 200. Okay, so I made a boo-boo here. 13x squared and 48x squared. And the 16x squared is 77x squared. Holy cow, it's early. 77x squared. Okay, good. Then I'm going to get my x's together. That becomes a negative 200x, and then finally 208. Oh my gosh, totally botched this whole mission here. Okay, so anyways, when we're all said and done, we have a 4th degree polynomial with the given zeros of 3 plus 2i, 4, 3 minus 2i, and 4 again. And that's the process to finding it, okay? So we find our zeros, find our factors, multiply them together, and get our function. Okay, here is one for you guys to try on your own. Okay, so I decided to just walk you guys through this, so hopefully you have it. Okay, so first thing I wanted to do is find the other zeros. So since I is a 0, negative I is a 0. Since 1 plus 2i is a 0, 1 minus 2i is another 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply my factors together. So I'm going to multiply these two factors together. Then I'm going to multiply these gnarly factors together. Okay, so when I multiply x plus I times x minus I, here's what you get. You get x squared, the minus xi plus xi goes away, and then the minus I squared. So what you end up with is x squared plus 1. When you multiply that, that becomes that. Okay, then I'm going to simplify this, say x minus 1 minus 2i times x minus 1 plus 2i when I distribute that minus sign. So again, okay, here's the blue stuff, becomes this right there. So what I want to do is I'm going to multiply x minus 1 plus 2i, multiply that using a box method, times x minus 1 minus 2i. And here is my result. X times x is x squared. X times negative 1 is negative x. This is a 2xi. This is a negative x. This is a positive 1. This is a negative 2i. This is a negative 2xi. This is a positive 2i. And this is a negative 4i quantity squared. So here we go. I've got an x squared term, so that's going to be an x squared. Negative x and a negative x is a minus 2x. 2xi, negative 2xi, that goes away. Negative 2i and a positive 2i, that goes away. Negative 4 times I squared is a positive 4. 4 and 1 gives you 5, so this becomes 5. Great. Now all that's left to do is to multiply this piece, which is the x squared plus 1, times that piece, and we have our function. So x squared plus 1 times x squared minus 2x plus 5. Now this one, I can go ahead and use the distributive property. It's not too bad. So x squared times x squared, that gives me, here's my function I'm creating. X to the fourth, a fourth degree polynomial, minus 2x to the third, plus 5x squared, and then times 1, so basically just rewrite the second function again. So plus x squared minus 2x, and then plus 5. Alright, so simplifying this, I get x to the fourth, minus 2x to the third. This looks like plus 6x squared minus 2x plus 5. And there is your fourth degree polynomial with the given zeros. There you go. So the guiding questions I wrote for you guys today was, how do you find a polynomial with a given degree and a given zero? And then what does a double root and multiplicity of 2 or 3 or 4 mean? Okay, there you go. Sorry about botching that one thing.